Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're unpacking a massive neurological glitch that affects every single one of us. Have you ever wondered why a dozen amazing compliments can be completely wiped out by just one tiny criticism? Well, based on our source material, we're going to look under the hood of your own brain to understand exactly why it operates the way it does and, definitely more importantly, how you can actually start to take control of it. Negative thoughts spread through your brain faster than positive ones. Honestly, let that sink in for a second. This is the startling reality we're exploring today. We kind of like to think of our minds as these perfect objective processors of information, right? Weighing the good and the bad equally. But our source material makes it crystal clear. The deck is fundamentally stacked against the positive. The bad stuff doesn't just linger, it actually travels faster. It operates on a neurological fast track, while the positive thoughts are just stuck taking the scenic route. And this sets the stakes for the entire problem we're unpacking today. Because if negative thoughts are spreading faster, we're basically fighting an uphill battle before we even realize we're in a fight. Okay, let's dive into this. The actual mechanic we're talking about here is called the negativity bias. Basically, this is the psychological phenomenon where negative events and thoughts have a much more significant impact on our brain than positive ones. Think of this as the core operating system of your mind. It's a default setting that totally dictates how you perceive the world around you. When you experience a setback or, someone gives you a strange look, this bias ensures your brain amplifies that data, magnifying it way, way beyond its actual importance. The negative hits harder, it lasts longer, and it demands way more of your cognitive bandwidth. It's not that you're inherently a pessimistic person, it's that your biological hardware is literally wired to prioritize bad news. Section 1. Blame your evolutionary ancestors. So, why on earth would our brains actually be built this way? Well, we need to take a quick little trip back in time. Picture a prehistoric threat for a second, a hungry, literal saber-toothed tiger. Now contrast that with a modern non-threat, like getting a vague text from your boss that just says, "Can we talk later?" For our ancestors, this negativity bias was an absolute lifesaver. Like, the early humans who survived were the ones who always assumed the worst. The guy who figured the rustling in the bushes was just the wind, yeah, he got eaten. But the guy who assumed it was a tiger, he ran, he survived, and he passed on his DNA and his hypervigilant, negativity-biased brain right down to you. But here's the punchline, and it's kind of a cruel biological joke. Today, you're sitting safe in an office or your living room, and you get that vague text message. And your brain, running on that exact same ancient software, reacts as if that text message is a saber-toothed tiger. It dumps the exact same stress hormones into your system, triggering the same panic. It completely overreacts to a modern inconvenience simply because it still thinks you're fighting for your life. Section 2. Modern life and anxiety. And that massive disconnect between our ancient biology and our current environment brings us directly to the root of modern anxiety. So let's track how this outdated survival mechanism literally hijacks our reality. In the morning, you experience a really minor negative event. Say you spill a little coffee on your shirt, or someone cuts you off in traffic. Objectively, it's a super small hiccup. But remember that quote from earlier? Negative thoughts spread faster. So by the afternoon, your brain is just completely fixating on it. You aren't thinking about the amazing lunch you had or that productive meeting you led. No, you're just ruminating on that morning frustration. And by the evening, this unmanaged negativity bias has compounded into a full-blown anxiety spiral. Because your brain prioritized that one single negative data point, it built an entire narrative around it, twisting a spilled coffee into literally nothing ever goes right for me and completely ruining your day. This timeline is exactly how the negativity bias operates in real time. Section 3. The toxic positivity myth. Now, recognizing this anxiety spiral is one thing, but society's standard solution for it is often entirely unhelpful. We really, really need to dismantle this idea. You've seen those typical positive thinking myths plastered on bumper stickers and all over your social media feeds, right? Things like just choose happiness or good vibes only. The problem here is that this demands you suppress your biological reality. It actually makes you feel guilty for having negative thoughts, which, as we just learned, are completely natural and hardwired into you. Now, contrast that with the actual mental health reality. The reality is about acknowledging the biological bias. It's about being able to say, well, of course my brain is focused on the negative right now. It's doing exactly what evolution trained it to do. You have to relieve yourself of the guilt of not being perfectly happy all the time. The goal isn't to magically erase negative thoughts with fake positivity. The real goal is to understand the mechanism so it simply doesn't control you anymore. Section 4. How to rewire your brain. Understanding that mechanism is a huge first step, but the true power of this explainer comes next. Let's pivot over to the solution. Now, what's really interesting here, and honestly the most empowering takeaway of all, is this single statement: your brain is plastic, not static. This concept is known as neuroplasticity, and it basically means that the physical structure of your brain and its neural pathways can actually change based on your experiences and your habits. You are not permanently stuck with your ancient evolutionary programming. Yes, the negativity bias is your default setting, for sure, but default settings can be changed. If negative thoughts spread fast because those neural pathways are wide and well-traveled, we can actively start building new, positive pathways. It definitely requires effort, but your brain is fully 100% capable of being molded. So how do we actually do that on a practical, daily basis? Well, here are 3 concrete steps you can take to rewire your thought patterns. Step 1. Notice the negative thought. You obviously can't change what you aren't aware of. When you feel that familiar anxiety spiral starting to spin up, just pause. Simply observe that your brain is fixating on something bad. Step 2. Acknowledge it's just an evolutionary bias. Label it. Tell yourself, hey, this isn't necessarily reality. This is literally just my inner caveman looking out for saber-toothed tigers. Doing this instantly distances you from the emotion. And finally, step 3. Consciously focus on a positive reality. Because positive thoughts travel slower, you have to intentionally hold them in your mind. Linger on a compliment you received, focus really deeply on something you're grateful for, and give your brain the time it actually needs to build a brand new positive neural pathway. You are manually overriding the system. And that brings us to our final thought. The science from our source material is completely clear. You definitely have an ancient bias pulling you toward the negative, but you also have the modern awareness and neuroplasticity to overcome it. Your brain is a dynamic learning machine, and it physically shapes itself around the thoughts you feed it the most often. So knowing all this, knowing that you literally have the power to rewrite the code, since your brain learns from what it focuses on, what will you choose to focus on next? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I challenge you to take these steps and start rewiring your reality today.